Well, hello and welcome to episode 10 of Design Review, the podcast for engineering your life. I'm Robert Haines, and today I'm delighted to be joined by my guest, Tanya Roberts. I met Tanya on LinkedIn, where she's a fierce and funny advocate for neurodivergence and the neurodivergent community. I love Tanya's bio, which I have secretly altered to not give away too much of her backstory. How are you supposed to sit still and breathe when it feels like ferrets are parkouring through your brain? If traditional meditation makes you cringe, you're not alone. Tanya Roberts, ADHD artist and meditation teacher, gets it. Tanya is a copywriter and content strategist, a writer, artist, and neurodivergent meditation teacher who helps autistic and ADHD folks meditate in a way that works with, not against, their spicy brains. After years of living with panic disorder and struggling to connect with traditional meditation, she was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, an insight that changed everything. In her Mindfulness Done Differently community, Tanya shares ND-friendly meditation and breathwork videos that blend movement, fidgeting, art, sensory play, and sound to help fellow autistics and ADHDers find their zen. Learn more and get a 14-day trial at mindfullydifferent.ca. Tanya, welcome to Design Review.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And thanks for the really warm introduction.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. And you know, we met on LinkedIn, and I went back and looked, and I remembered when you were hosting neurospicy coffee chats, and I got to participate in one of those. And I love the community. I love the understanding as an ADHD person myself, who found out late in life, and went through the whole process of flailing and anger and the whole acceptance, and then realizing, wait, there's like actually stuff in here that's of benefit to me. I appreciate anyone who's going out there to try and help life make more sense and bring some understanding and support. So I love what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to chatting more about it.
Yeah, same. And when did you just recently get your ADHD diagnosis or identification?
Well, I had a therapist that was trying to tell me I had ADHD for maybe 5 years. Um, and I had been, oh boy, this is a story. I believed I was bipolar. My dad had that diagnosis. I had some behavior that looked to me like bipolar behavior. I would get to the point where my speech would be so fast that people couldn't understand it. I would have like flight of ideas. I would have really active things that I would be up to, and then something would happen, and then I would shift to be in a place where I could barely function. I could, I would stare at my computer for 6 to 8 hours at a time, and that would be like 3 days up, 5 days down, and I went to a psychiatrist and pointed this behavior out, and after 3 levels of intake, the psychiatrist said, "Okay, here's lithium." and
You see, here's some tasty lithium.
Yeah, which I took for 35 years.
Wow.
That was back when I thought, I want the quick fix. I want to fix the thing that's wrong with me. But anyway, it was a journey. And eventually I went through some psychological evaluation. And then I also tried Adderall. And the first day I took it, I was able to focus on things that I historically could not focus on. And I was like actually in tears because like, holy crap, I can't imagine a life where I could act like this. It turned out that medication didn't really work for me over long haul. There were side effects, and there's more to the journey after that I had to learn techniques. I had to learn ways to center and ground myself. So yeah, but when my therapist first told me, "Do you think you might have ADHD?" I'm like, well, coffee doesn't help. So no, I don't think, it's like, I like dismissed it offhand. I somehow didn't want that. I was willing to accept being bipolar, but I was not willing to accept having ADHD. Right now, ADHD and my addictive personality, which is manifested in codependence and dependence on humans, explains everything that I've been through in my life. And so now that I'm at peace with it, I've actually found ways to like say, hey, wait, this has actually brought me some good stuff. That's more story than I'd expected quite this early in it, but happy to share. Give us some background on you. Introduce everybody to Tanya beyond my intro. What do you do in life?
Uh-huh.
Um, so that we know who you are.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciated your little sidebar story there. So relatable, and yeah, it's interesting how long it takes us to be identified properly, and everything we have to go through to understand ourselves. So it's nice for us to finally have this understanding. Okay, here's what it is. Here's how I can work with it. Here's how I can help myself, and see kind of the superpower sides of it. But also, yes, there's things that are hard, and we don't want to just say neurodivergence is a superpower, because I feel like that is also a bit demeaning, because we have our superpowers, but we also have our struggles. And, seeing both of those, I think gives us a full picture of how we can live our best lives. But yeah, I mean, your intro was so good. I can't think of what to add beyond that. I mean, I'm an artist, writer, spicy brained person, obviously a mom. I love to paint. See my paintings back here. I love to do textured art. Really into nature. But yeah, meditation. I don't know if you want to hear my backstory about how I kind of came into meditation.
I would like to do that. Let me work our way into that, but definitely we want to hear that. So the realm of design review is I'm talking to people about something they're up to, something that they're creating, something that they're working on in the world, and to give everybody that's listening a chance to understand it better, we start with, okay, what's your why? What led you to this? So first of all, what is the project or the idea? Is it your community that we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, I think that'd be most relevant to your listeners. So yeah, let's talk about.
Wonderful. So we'll be talking about the mindfulness done differently community. So now give us like the intro about what was the problem that community is the answer to.
Yeah, okay. So this is a big backstory. So 15 years ago or so, I was working in an open concept tech job, and I was mega, mega anxious. So I didn't know I was neurodivergent back then. I just thought I was an anxious person. So like many neurodivergents, I call it trying to shove my square peg self into a round hole. My corners were breaking off. I remember saying that to a colleague. And what does that mean? Working in an open concept tech job, which is kind of hell for an autistic ADHD person, having eyes on you all the time, being perceived in that way, really difficult deadlines, all the sensory stuff, people passing, conversations happening all the time, all the pressure I put on myself, the perfectionism. So I was not doing well. I was having multiple panic attacks a day. And I was having to mask through these panic attacks during meetings. I remember thinking, okay, it's not safe for them to know I'm having a panic attack right now. So keep it together. I was doing my breathing exercises, trying to not run out of the room, still trying to function in this meeting, which looking back seems ridiculous that I couldn't just say, I'm having a panic attack. I need help, So the masking was very, very intense. And I think I turned to alcohol thinking, okay, this will help me relax. It didn't. Spoiler alert, it made me feel worse the next day. Because a lot of neurodivergent people are really sensitive to substances, myself included, and caffeine as well. I was just swigging back coffees, all day, not realizing caffeine makes me super anxious as well. I don't have any anymore. I know that's kind of strange, but I'm naturally caffeinated, so I don't need it. So next I went to therapy, which was very necessary. We did the typical things, talk about your childhood, your trauma, event-based things. None of it was quite working. I was still anxious, and they tried to do exposure therapy on me and have me face the events or situations where I was panicking. And one of them was restaurants. And I would go in there and just feel horrible, be on the verge of a panic attack the whole time. And it wasn't working. I wasn't getting used to those environments. I was actually feeling worse. And it turns out it was a sensory issue, a sensory and social difference. And they were using the wrong therapy methods on me. So anyways, the anxiety wasn't getting better. I tried meditation, and I had a lot of trouble sitting still. And I wasn't quite connecting with the conventional mindfulness practices. So I just threw in the towel and said, forget it. I suck at meditation, and gave it up for years. My anxiety got a little bit better. I started working from home. I did exercise, which now I realize is a sensory need for me. So I tried certain methods that got better, but I was still very anxious. off and on and have these periods of intense anxiety and overwhelm, which I realized were probably sensory related and meltdowns, with anxiety layered on top. So years later, so fast forward to, 15 years later, people in my family started getting identified as ADHD, almost all of them. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, interesting. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I started looking into myself. Okay, could I be autistic ADHD? Start, going down my research rabbit hole, which can be, for neurodivergence, quite intense. So I got to meet at my special interest to figure this out. Am I autistic? Took every quiz on the internet, put together a categorized list of all the reasons I think I'm autistic, brought it to the psych appointment. I found a specialist. She's autistic herself and ADHD, and she specializes in neurodivergent women. Came to her and, we went through the whole assessment process and she said, you're autistic and ADHD. I'm like, wow. At first it was a big shock. I'm like, whoa. And it took me a long time to believe it because masking, right? And people don't understand neurodivergence in women or late identified folks because they're so good at pretend we're normal, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So I kind of went on this spree of buying fidgets because I was like, oh, sensory needs. What do I need? Just, tons of Amazon packages were coming with every kind of fidget. And I was squeezing a stress ball one day during a meditation. I said, hey, I can actually concentrate now. I can meditate. This is easier when I use the fidget. So I thought, what if I combine the things that I like, movement, fidgeting, art, sensory play, and sound, combine that with meditation and create sort of an accessible, modified mindfulness practice that ADHD and autistic folks can actually practice. And I call it like, here's a metaphor I used to describe it. So you wouldn't go to the gym and, if you had a knee injury, you wouldn't go to the gym and just go ham and do 100 squats. You put on a knee brace before you even did that squat.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect that you do one squat and you have, I don't know if I can swear in this podcast. Can I swear?
Oh yeah, you sure?
Yeah. Okay. You wouldn't do one squat and expect you have an ass like Beyonce, right? You know, like this is a time we need to practice. So kind of like in that too, in my meditation process, the knee brace is the movement, fidgeting, art, sensory play, and sound, and the pacing, how I package it all up for people who may not respond the same way to directions. For example, they could have PDA, persistent desire for autonomy, or, an auditory processing difference, or an attention difference. So I make sure everyone knows, here's what you can expect. We're going to do this for the next 30 seconds, then we're moving on. Everything's a suggestion so we don't trigger demand avoidance. So yeah, that's my method. And I'm teaching a couple of classes to neurodivergence right now. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on it. It's just, I think, a lot easier to follow. And also if someone has aphantasia, which my mom has, meaning they can't picture anything in their mind's eye at all, conventional meditation doesn't really consider that. There's a lot of imagine yourself doing this, picture that. And some people can't do that. So I always have a modification for anyone who might be PDA, have aphantasia, demand avoidance, attention differences, things like that. So just really tailored to help this group of people, myself included, because I do my own meditations as well. That might be a little bit weird because listen to my own voice, but it works for me. I created something that I could use 10 to 15 years ago when I was in, at the height of my panic and just absolute rock bottom. What would I have needed back then? That's kind of how I frame it all up. And that's my why.
Wow. Such a rich picture. And also I like 15 years of living through those attempts to do that without finding something that was really helpful. That sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it was exhausting. And I don't want anyone to suffer like that and feel that they have to mask their true self and do everything on their own. And this is why I have the community element, because I heard a therapist once said, you're not supposed to feel your feelings on your own. We're supposed to co-regulate with other people. So if you're just doing meditation videos on your own, you don't have that community around you. There's limits to how much you can regulate your nervous system. But if you have that community, that group, to support you, to meditate with, which we do a meditation together once a week and then a general support group. It provides that nervous system regulation and safety that you need to even get into that mindful state.
I love it. And you've covered a lot of ground, and I'm kind of break up a little bit in the middle, but also I want to identify, because it took me a very long time Um, like honestly, I suffered through things not working for me for probably 40 years. And it's only once I started to get, well, medication helped. Medication was kind of like my knee brace, so that it got me to the point where I wasn't like suffering so badly so that I could then put the time in to doing the other work. Um, and ultimately, it took really digging into my own emotional regulation tools, which included meditation and stuff. But I'm an ADHD kind of only, and I realized that there's a whole other bag of tricks as you're describing it, with lots of different flavors too. Because I have a very strong visual sense. I couldn't imagine doing the things that I've needed to do if I had an aphantasia inability to like have the visual imagery, because I kind of count on them. So I appreciate that you've gone through lots of work, not only, well, starting with helping yourself and then how to help the community. So that's the why. And the answer to the why is your work, which now is an organization or a community. Um, Now, is that where you put all your time in now, or is this something that's um a passion project? Where is this in your life? What is the community for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's both. I mean, I'm putting a lot of time into it right now, trying to grow it and help more people. So I do the cooperating still. I still work for, cooperating for software and tech, but I'm moving more and more towards putting more of my time and effort into this. It feels like a life purpose. And not just for me, but, for people in my family, for people who are like me, who are struggling and, not able to find the resources they need. That I really need that purpose in my work to feel good about. I mean, yes, we live in a capitalistic society. You got to pay the rent, mortgage, whatever. But I'd rather do that and help people. And that's what I'm leaning towards. But of course, it's a process, it has to grow, working on that. But so far, I've seen a lot of interest and engagement, and I'm just excited to see it grow even further.
Well, love that, and that you are on this podcast really means that you're out there doing something that helps other people, and I'm finding it a fairly common thing that as we heal ourselves and find ways to function in the world and achieve level of relief, then we have some freedom to then apply it to others. And so I really love that you're this is a passion project that is, I think that the solutions that you're finding are only found by people that have that kind of drive. Somebody whose only goal is, I want to go make some money, isn't going to put the time and the effort and the care and the love into it that's going to produce the results that you're seeing.
It's true, yeah, and just having that I mean, looking back, if I had to go back in time to 15 years ago, I'd say I would do anything not feel this way, but maybe having that horrible experience, I can turn that into some way to make the world a better place. That's kind of how I make sense of my pain as well. How can I use it to help another person?
That's a lovely metaphor, and I've used that as well. It's like I've lived through some really, really painful times. In fact, I got into my process that really got steep at the end of my third divorce, where at some point I'm like, I don't know if life is really worth it anymore.
Mhm.
Um, Ultimately, I've gone back and said, I'm so grateful that happened. I'm so grateful that I got the wake up call. It's helped me enormously to become the me that I am. And so I wouldn't wish those 15 years on you, but you seem to have invested that time well. So in your process from why to current organizations, can you share a couple things that went really well and maybe a couple things that didn't? Some lessons learned along the way?
Yeah, this is important because it was not an easy linear process putting this thing together. I was filled with doubt. Just is this crazy? Will anyone want this? Is this going to be successful? And I just analyzed the absolute hell out of it and was asking for a lot of reassurance from my husband because I don't have a big tolerance for risk. Even though, I'm self-employed and I have been for, 10 plus years doing a copywriting thing.
No.
I get a little panicky with change and risk because, yes, I'm autistic. So that's, for me, a feature of it. Change can be scary. Uncertainty can be scary.
Mhm.
But I just kept pushing through and involving others in the process and getting that reassurance. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because we're taught, okay, you shouldn't need reassurance. You should just be confident on your own. But involving others and getting the support and help figuring out the idea. Okay, what is it? And is interesting. I think one trait I find in particularly autistic people is that we're bottom up thinkers typically. So it's like, say there's just a mess of puzzle pieces on the table and you have the puzzle box, but there's no picture on it. And you're just putting together the puzzle pieces, not knowing what the picture will be like. Whereas a top down thinker, they see the big picture and then the details flesh out the big picture. So for us, knowing what's happening next, we really need it, but it can be really hard to form that picture because we're details before concept thinkers. So knowing that about myself, I think helped because then I wasn't pushing myself so much to find this big idea. How do I package it up? At first, it's like, well, is it a sensory thing? Is it an art therapy thing? And I didn't have that big picture, but I needed more time to put my pieces together, so to speak, to know, okay, this is actually mindfulness, self-care, wellness for neurodivergence. That's why I package it up. So all the big idea took a long time and I was really scared. I'm like, oh no, am I going to just be broke living under a bridge somewhere if I put my time and money into this? Oh, but I pushed through and then, I think it just takes time to get that belief in your idea and that it's actually workable. So that was the hardest part. I don't want to say it's imposter syndrome, but just the belief that, hey, this can work and this is worth putting my time into and people want and need this.
Well, I want to acknowledge the courage that you displayed to keep working through this and finding solutions when you didn't know where it was going to go, especially with something that's, an endeavor that there's not a lot of examples of this.
No, there
Um,
isn't.
you mentioned, so I, first of all, awesome that you've stuck through that. Cause a lot of people wouldn't, it's easy in life to play it safe. But when safe equals pain, then there's some incentive to, I guess be like a oyster that has a grain of sand that's an irritant, eventually you'll like polish it. You mentioned
Interesting metaphor. The oyster of the sand. That's, yeah, think about that. I'll file that in. Good metaphor later.
I have lots of those scattered through my head sometime. You mentioned support and community, and I find that the work I've done lately, having community, especially community that can understand, has been really helpful for me. But you also brought up something that has me curious about, is it helpful to have people that are like, have a different life response than you with you? Or is it more helpful for you to be around other people who tend to process things the same way? I've done both. I'm curious what kind of community support is good for you, and what have you learned about using that going forward?
That's a very interesting question I have to think about. I think, support, there's a difference between what you want to hear and what you need to hear. It's always helpful for me to hear different perspectives, but sometimes it can be confusing if you're hearing the wrong perspective because that bottom up thinking means I synthesize all the information from my environment. And I come to a conclusion. So if it's the wrong information, it's still part of the puzzle, even though it doesn't fit. I can't easily discard it. But in general, it's good for me to chat with people who are emotionally reassuring, not just practically, to help me figure out what to do next, but who encourage me, empower me to know that I have the answers and I can believe in myself and, I've got this and keep going. That kind of support is more helpful because the practical stuff, it just takes me time to figure out and I always do. But the emotional support, I think is more necessary and something I haven't always focused on. I usually go to practical first. Okay, how can I solve this problem? And it's like, well, wait, what are you actually feeling underneath? Okay, scared, you know, nervous, not confident, doubting yourself, dread, whatever. What are you feeling? And how can you get support with that versus how do I solve my problem? Because I'm very much a problem solver, and sometimes you need to, I say, deal with the stress before the stressor. Deal with the stress in your body first before you try to solve the problem. And that didn't come from me. That came from I think they're called the Nagoski sisters, or pair of twin psychologists. I don't know if I'm butchering their name, but they say that deal with the stress before the stressor.
I love that you bring that up. Um, I've been on my own journey with that regard too, but I had a lot of emotional distress. And that sucks all your energy away. So your ability to solve problems is seriously hampered when you're in a state of panic and distress. I love that you recognized and sought out that kind of support. Where'd that support come from? Was it family or friends or?
Yeah, I mean, mostly my partner, friends, other professionals who are sort of coaches in people's communities, things like that. But I'd say mostly from friends, my partner. Yeah.
Oh, I found it invaluable. I didn't used to have community that I shared openly with, and therefore I couldn't get that level of support. If I couldn't articulate my feelings because it was dangerous in my mind to share what I was going through, then I couldn't get the support. And I ended up toughing it out a lot, which didn't work very well. That would fall under the this didn't work well in my plans examples. But I love that. And I love that what you're talking about really applies to all humans,
Mhm.
regardless of our, neurological makeup. That, if we're experiencing emotional stress, getting support for that, which often can just be, understanding and reassurance and being there. There's no real
You
support for being there.
absolutely, yeah, and it's, just to point on that, I think there's a lot of layers that make it hard for neurodivergent people to understand that. So, ADHD and autistic people. So, there's a thing called alexithymia where we have trouble feeling or verbalizing or understanding emotions in the moment, kind of like latent emotional processing. So sometimes it can be even be hard to know what we're feeling. So we don't know how to get support for that because what are we getting support for? There's no recognized feeling there. But actually, meditation can help a lot with alexithymia. I think there's some research around that it can help people to become more aware of what's happening in their body, what a certain emotion might feel like in the body. I have a meditation around this. It's so special interests are, interests that autistic and ADHD people put a lot of hyper focus into. It provides joy and excitement and a way of expressing themselves. So I kind of use that as a joy portal in a meditation. We're going to think about our special interest. Okay, what's happening in our body? Do we have a tingle in the right side of our head? A warmth in our chest, whatever, and start to kind of create a blueprint for what does joy feel like in the body. So doing the more somatic based stuff, getting in the body versus always being in the head. Because I think that can be a problem for us. We're very analytical, logical. I mean, for the most part, I don't want to paint too broad of strokes here. But anytime we can get into the body, we can start to kind of heal some of that trauma, understand what's happening so we can even reach out and ask for the support to begin with.
I really appreciate that. As in my process of recovering, I had to be able to identify feelings, but I had never done meditation before. And being somebody who likes instant gratification, um, developing anything that takes time didn't used to happen. I was either good at something or I didn't want to do it at all. And I was good at enough things. I survived. Actually, I did pretty well, but developing meditation wasn't something that was a quick process for me. So if somebody wanted to start that, would you have some advice for somebody who's like, I've tried meditation, but either it doesn't work for me, or I've never tried it, or I've tried it and I've had a lot of problems because I can't possibly sit for more than 2 minutes at a time. Would you have some advice for how somebody go about the process of starting that, or am I now encroaching on your actual work?
I'd be happy to share. This is a really interesting question because I hear this a lot. I think first it's understanding. First thing is understanding the goal of meditation, what it can and can't do. So I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I sit down, meditation's not working, I don't feel calm." But the goal of meditation is to practice non-judgmental awareness. So simply to notice your thoughts, not get wrapped up in them, and then go back to your meditation anchor. So the anchor is whatever you're focusing on. It could be your breath, a visual, it could be an intention, a mantra, anything like that. So the concept's quite simple. And I think people get hung up on, I'm supposed to feel calm, or I'm supposed to feel something. But even, bona fide Buddhist monks, I think his name is Yangi Mingir Rinpoche. He has panic attacks still, and he's been practicing for 40 years. He's had a lifetime of panic disorder, and he just watches his panic attack, and, it kind of passes faster. So the whole idea is to have a better relationship with yourself, the contents of your mind, what's going on, and the effects can be seen in your waking life as well. It's not just, I'm going to feel calm on this, meditation cushion or walk, or however you're practicing meditation. You could feel like shit. You'd be having a panic attack. You could be bored. You could not want to do it. But the more you focus on, pay attention to what's actually happening in your mind and shift your attention back to the anchor of your meditation, you're flexing those attention muscles. And I think the science says 20 minutes a day for 6 weeks, you change your brain, you get more gray matter in areas of attention and focus, to help with emotional regulation, things like that. So it actually changes your brain. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes a day, and you can piece it together. You could do even a free range meditation. Like right now, I could just take 3 breaths and notice the sensations in my feet or my hands. And it can be a minute long. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes. You can do it while you're walking outside. Just notice the colors. And then notice when your mind wanders and bring your attention back to the colors. You can do it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something very basic. And I'd say try to bring in a sensory element. So the walking meditation is really good to start for neurodivergence because you're getting the proprioceptive input, which is feedback to your muscles and joints, which is a sensory need. Mm-hmm. Plus you're doing the meditation. So it can be easier with that movement to get into that zone. So I would say don't try to force yourself to practice conventional methods, thinking that you're going to be floating on a mountaintop somewhere and have some sort of eureka, out of body experience. It's not realistic. You might feel nothing when you meditate. And after time, 30, 45 days, you're going to start to notice, okay, I can feel my feelings in my body more. Okay, I'm having more moments of joy. These are things I notice when I meditate regularly, that the moments of joy and happiness are felt more in my body, and I feel the emotion more intensely in a positive way, and I'm more emotionally aware. Some people might not want that, to be more emotionally aware, but I find that that's the key to living a happy, joyful life, is knowing what you're feeling it, and being able to move on and clear it out and kind of experience those profound moments of joy. So that's how it impacts me. I'm not saying everyone is going to have the same experience, but it's definitely possible. And getting those expectations, really realistic. And the other thing is, I think us neurodivergents like to do everything 100%, but even Buddhist monks are having like 5% success rate with this maximum. Their brains are going nuts too. And, our brains are probably going 40% faster than theirs because, with autistic people, our brains are 40% more active at rest than a neurotypical person. I would say ADHD, I would probably hazard a guess if that's the same. But I don't know for sure. That's just anecdotally.
Yeah.
So if a Buddhist monk can only have 5% success, why are we expecting ourselves to be floating, levitating when we do this meditation? Have really low expectations, and don't beat yourself up for not feeling perfectly calm when you're doing this.
I really appreciate that, and this may be like a section of the recording to like review for anybody getting new to it. I also like that we have slightly different perspectives, but they overlap a lot. So for me, I've learned a lot about mindfulness. So, and, being aware. And I like meditation as a practice. I like, literally, it's meditation practice. It's, you don't get strong by going and doing one set of, 300-pound deadlifts. It takes time, and the results don't come immediately. But they do, come. And in my case, my brain can get to racing. I can ruminate. And I can catastrophize. And I can get super, super excited. So on the 10-point scale, I used to live my life in the 1, 2, 9, 10 area, which is one of the reasons I thought I was bipolar, right? And I'm finding that with a meditation practice, it's regular. In my case, it's daily. I spend 30 to 40 minutes on a cushion in the morning. And I'm now living more in the, 4, 5, 6, 7 range of, and I find that's a lot. It ends up being calm. I end up reacting to things less, but I'm also more present.
Mhm.
One of the things with ADHD is that, it's a common thing to interrupt people. And for me, that's that's feedback for me if I'm not cured. um, but when I'm more watchful in observer mind of my thoughts, which is one of the ways I would describe it. I love the way you described it too. It's like, it's not like you're trying to get someplace. It's more a level of awareness. Um,
Mhm.
when I'm more aware of my thoughts and my speech and the world around me, then it's sort of like going on a high-speed bullet train and just slowing down. It allows me to take things more one thing at a time and not try to like solve all of the problems simultaneously. And I really like how life shows up when I'm in this phase, but it takes practice. And your example of just take 3 breaths, I use that. I use that with me. I use that with my clients. It doesn't work for everybody. But for those that it does, that process of just taking 3 breaths, and being with that can help take, the edge off. And if something's like really, uh, um, then that can help make it more manageable. And I love that because that's so portable.
Yes, boardable. I call it free range meditations. And Yangi Minger Rinpoche, I think he talks about this too. You could even be in the car looking at, the colors of the cars around you, just paying attention
Yeah.
to that. You could be brushing your teeth and feeling the sensations. You could be drinking your coffee. And one little hack for habit formation is they call it pairing. So you pick an established habit, like I drink my coffee in the morning, decaf for me, no caffeine, thank you. And pair that with a little bit of I say mindfulness because you're not sitting on a cushion and technically doing meditation. It's still meditation. For me, the terms are interchangeable.
Yeah.
You could notice how the cup feels in your hand, the warmth of it, how it smells, taking the first sip. The meditation could be 1 minute long and doing that whenever you can. Or you could pair that with, sitting on a cushion doing walking and meditation, whatever you want. But even if it's only a minute, you're still meditating. You don't have to sit down straight and pay attention for 20 straight minutes. You don't have to do that. I mean, you can if you want, but you can bring this with you in your life. I mean, I have 2 young kids, 2 and 7. My life's pretty crazy. There's a lot of noise, all kinds of chaos happening. I work as well, all of this, and have limited childcare. So I know what it's like to live in absolute chaos, but you can even use that chaos as part of your meditation. Okay, let's pay attention to the sounds for a moment. Or, how do I feel in my body when I'm playing with my kids? Just switching into that mindfulness mode, you can do it anywhere. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about it. You don't have to have any rules. And a conventional mindfulness practice, there's a lot of rules and a lot of rigidity around it, but you get to make your own rules because
Yeah.
they don't have your type of brain. They don't, this is not made for your operating system. So we need a couple modifications to make it work.
I love that. That's also a word we use in yoga. Modifications. In fact, I have a couple of tricks, hacks, whatever. I love looking for all the red things you can find, and then all the blue things you can find. It's like, and in terms of like body scans, start with what's the top of your head feel like, and then go all the way through, or what can you smell, what can you feel on your skin, temperature, what can you hear, and just any of those focusings, all of them bring more presence, more mindfulness, and yeah, they can be used anywhere. My cushion time is kind of like my basic workout, but then you got to take it into your life, and be in a meeting with 20 people, God forbid that, uh
Sounds like hell.
um or a class or a project, or you're in an office environment, or you got kids or whatever. The thing is, life will provide you the gym you need. And if you realize, oh wait, I'm in the gym, I can choose whatever, workout is mine to do at the moment. And that brought me such relief to realize there was something I could do. I wasn't just cursed to have a brain that would be at war with me, which is how it felt most of my life.
Yeah.
It really, like, it literally brings tears to my eyes, like remembering what's the case now, what I have available to me now, what's in my control, versus what used to seem just like I was horribly abusive of myself with the way life used to be.
Oh yeah, the inner critic. Yeah, the inner critic. That's something that comes up a lot. And thanks for sharing that. I mean, I can relate too. And during times of stress, I find that inner critic comes out full force. Like inner drill sergeant, here I am when you're at your most vulnerable. Time to just punish you, right?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's really painful. Um, wow. I, I just want to take a moment to thank you, because I'm so enjoying this conversation and all the deep, deep things that you're sharing. And I'm kind of regretful about the fact that our time's kind of running down. And I'm like hopeful that maybe in the future we could have another conversation if you would be up for that.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Do you mind if I say one thing about the inner critic?
Absolutely. Wrap up with whatever needs to be said, including how people reach out to you.
Definitely. So yeah, the inner critic, this is coming up a lot in my meditation sessions. And there's some research to suggest that autistic folks, I think ADHD as well, are a lot harder on themselves and more self-critical. A lot of that comes from trauma. I think with ADHD folks, I don't know if I'm getting this stat right, but I think we get 200,000 more negative comments and reprimands in childhood than a neurotypical peer. So that's a lot of criticism. And I think we start to internalize it. Okay, the way that we think and feel and experience the world is wrong or bad or broken. We're too loud. We interrupt too much. Whatever version of that critique you got, we internalize it and we start to develop these parts of ourselves. I'm not a parts work practitioner, but there's a whole modality of therapy called internal family systems or
Yeah,
part work.
IFS. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm best. So the inner critic emerges and we start to identify with that. Like somehow it's our entire identity versus just a part of ourselves. I think with meditation, you can start to, even just the function of we are not our thoughts, you can start to apply that to the inner critic. I am not my inner critic. It's a part of myself that I experience or observe. So I can identify with it less and show compassion towards this part of myself and hear what it has to say, but be in the driver's seat that we can focus back on our meditation anchor. We don't have to get sucked into this self-critical narrative. It's just a part of ourselves, just like thoughts are a part of ourselves.
Wow, this is going to be a whole other podcast, I think, by the time we get to that. But I do want to, I'll funnel up. This is really, really important. I used to not know the difference between my thoughts and me. I have thoughts, I am not my thoughts. And
Exactly.
and my work as a Jungian life coach is, as I'm being trained right now, is to help people bring all of the family members together, to be whole, to be individuated. That they're not bad. They had a mission. They may have like distorted the mission a little bit, taking it a bit too seriously. But being able to be kind and understanding, and realizing that just because you have a thought about something doesn't make it true.
Exactly. Thoughts, not facts, is what I say.
Yeah, and learning what the truth really is.
Mhm.
I find that most humans are far greater and more loving and capable and just really amazing than they think they are.
Mhm.
And part of what I'm out to in life is to help people realize who they really are. And I love what you're doing. So before we wrap,
Mhm.
let people know how they would reach out to you. I've already mentioned mindfullydifferent.ca
Mhm.
as a website. Uh, LinkedIn is a place to reach out to you, perhaps, or how else would people find you and your organization?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. On TikTok, I'm different.mindful. I hope I gave you the right handle. We'll find out later.
We Give it to me later. I'll put it in our description of the episode.
Sounds good. And so you can go to mindfullydifferent.ca. So that's mindfully with two L's, different.ca. And you can use code 30 days free to get your first month for free. So try it out. See if you like it. There's no pressure. You can cancel whenever you want and just give it a spin and see if it's for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Tanya. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your generous sharing and for the really amazing information that I hope people find useful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really great chatting with you, Robert. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Well, I will look forward to one in the future. Um,
Me as well.
thank you again.
Thank you.